When my boss called me into the meeting room after 22 years of my career, he said he wanted to thank me. "I'm resigning," I said calmly. His expression changed instantly. "My name is Michael Thompson. I'm 48 years old, and I was the software development manager at TechVantage in Chicago. Until that day, for the past 8 months, I'd been feeling that something was changing." Young CEO Brandon Richards, Stanford graduate, was one of those guys spouting digital transformation buzzwords. At 32, he got this position thanks to his father, constantly talking nonsense about disruptive innovation and agile transformation. He kept saying our traditional approaches were outdated, that we needed fresh blood. One of Brandon's first moves was directing experienced employees toward retirement under a so-called mentorship program. That's how he sent away 55-year-old Jennifer Wilson and Kevin Baker, a 20-year marketing specialist. My turn was coming. But I had noticed something. There was a system in the company's servers that nobody knew about. A special security protocol I had developed 15 years ago. I called this system Thompson Guard. Without this system, all company operations would stop. Customer data would be compromised. Millions of dollars would be lost. The CEO at that time, Robert Martinez, had specifically requested, "Michael, don't prepare documentation for this system. It's too critical. If it falls into the wrong hands, it would be a disaster." That's why it hadn't been recorded anywhere for 15 years. 2 weeks ago, I overheard Brandon's plans to fire me in a phone conversation. As I was coming out of the bathroom, his office door was ajar. I could hear his voice clearly. "Dad, we need to clean out the old guard," he was saying on the phone. "Especially that guy Michael. He keeps saying this is how we used to do it, resisting change. If he goes, the company saves $200,000 annually. Who will replace him?" asked the voice on the other end. "I'll promote Alex Chen, MIT graduate, 28 years old. He's hungry, plus his salary is half of Michael's." I had smiled at that moment.
Because there was something Brandon didn't know.
Even though Alex Chen was talented, only I had the passwords and architecture of the Thompson Guard system. It wasn't recorded anywhere. That evening at home, I told my wife Sarah everything. 45-year-old Sarah had been married to me for 20 years and sometimes understood my work better than I did. "What are you going to do?" she asked while preparing dinner in the kitchen. "I'm going to give them what they want," I said, "but they'll also learn how I can give it to them." "Michael," she said seriously, "this is risky." Sarah," I said, taking her hand, "I've been loyal to this company for 22 years. I worked day and night. When Brandon's father, Charles Richards, hired me, he said, 'You're family to us.' Now his son is throwing me away like trash." I started preparations that very night. First, I established my own company, Thompson Security Solutions LLC. I registered in Delaware, had a professional website prepared. Then I copied the backup codes of the system to a secure location, how Thompson Guard worked, which ports it used, what encryptions protected it. I documented everything, but only in my personal cloud account. Most importantly, I secretly started meeting with the company's 3 biggest clients: David Park, CTO of Global Tech Industries; Lisa Martinez, CEO of InnovateSoft; and Robert Kim, security manager of Megadata Corporation. I arranged coffee meetings with them. "Michael," David Park had said, "your security system at TechVantage is really amazing. If you work independently, could you work with us too?" "Of course," I had said. "Actually, I'm planning to start my own company." Monday morning, I went to the office early. Brandon hadn't arrived yet, but I told his assistant, Jessica Peterson, "Tell Brandon I need to talk about an important matter. I'll be giving 2 weeks' notice." Jessica was surprised. "2 weeks' notice? Are you leaving?" "I'm just acting in accordance with company policies," I said with a smile. At 10 o'clock, he called me to the meeting room. When I entered, HR manager Amanda Foster was also there. Classic firing scenario. There was a red folder on the table, probably my file. "Michael," Brandon said, with a confident demeanor leaning on the table. Our company is entering a new era. In the digital transformation process, we need a more dynamic, more agile structure. Unfortunately, your position doesn't have a place in the new organizational chart. Amanda Foster stepped in. Of course, we're offering you a generous severance package, 6 months' salary plus benefits. I understand, I said. Actually, I wanted to tell you something too. Brandon seemed surprised. He wasn't expecting such a reaction. He probably expected crying, begging. I want to resign, I said calmly. I'm officially ending my employment in 2 weeks. Or resign? He stammered. But I know. I heard your plans. But I wanted to act first. This way it's more professional. Amanda Foster started taking notes. Well, during the transition period? Oh yes, I said. There's a problem regarding the transition. What problem? Brandon asked, frowning. The bomb explodes. The Thompson Guard security protocol I developed 15 years ago, it protects all our customer data, financial transactions, and server infrastructure. This system manages the critical data of our Fortune 500 customers. The silence in the room was ear-piercing. Brandon dropped his pen. The documentation and admin passwords of this system are only with me by special instruction from CEO Robert Martinez. For security reasons, it's not recorded anywhere. What do you mean it's not recorded anywhere? Amanda asked in panic. Without this system, I continued, the company can stay operational for a maximum of 72 hours. After that, all customer data becomes inaccessible. Global Tech, Innovate Soft, Megadata, all their data gets locked. Brandon's face had turned pale. You need to hand over this information immediately. Of course, I said with a smile. However, this information is extremely sensitive. If it falls into the wrong hands, it would be catastrophic. That's why I can only give it to someone I trust. Someone who really understands this business. You can give it to Alex Chen, Brandon said, his voice trembling. Alex is very talented, I said. But for this level of system architecture, you need at least 2-3 years of experience. If he makes a mistake, the company could go bankrupt due to lawsuits. Amanda Foster stepped in. Well, could you teach Alex during the transition period? Unfortunately, I said, standing up, unless I'm doing consulting, I can't share such critical information. Legal liability is too high. Final blow. Actually, I said, leaning toward Brandon, as Thompson Security Solutions, I provide consulting services for managing such critical systems. I can manage your systems for $25,000 monthly. Brandon jumped up. This is blackmail. No, I said, calmly. This is business. Market rate is actually higher for such specialized services. This isn't legal, he shouted. This is company property. Wrong, I said. In terms of intellectual property rights, the code and protocols I developed myself are mine, especially since there's no company documentation. By the way, I said, walking toward the door, Global Tech, Innovate Soft, and Megadata companies are also going to start working with me. I can handle yours while managing their security systems, but of course, that's your decision. How did you contact them? Brandon asked in amazement. Professional network, I said, shrugging. In a 22-year career, people build connections. Exit and cliffhanger. As I left the room, I could hear Brandon shouting, "How is this possible? You can't do this. I'll call the legal team." I also heard Amanda Foster's voice. "Michael, please wait. We can solve this problem." I smiled. After 22 years, I had finally shown who I was. As I got in the elevator, the phone started ringing. It was Brandon. I didn't answer. As I was leaving the lobby, Jessica Peterson came running. "Michael, Brandon is calling a senior management meeting. They say you need to come back immediately." "Sorry, Jessica," I said. "I'm not officially an employee anymore. If they want a business meeting, they need to make an appointment." That evening, when I got home, Sarah met me at the door. "How did it go?" "Perfect," I said. "Now the real fun begins." The next morning at 6 a.m., the phone rang. TechVantage Legal Department was on the screen. "Mr. Thompson," said the voice on the other end, "I'm Patricia Williams, TechVantage's Chief Legal Counsel. We need to meet urgently." "Good morning, Patricia," I said, sipping my coffee. "You can call my assistant to make an appointment, Mr. Thompson. We're not in a position to joke. Company operations are at risk." "I know," I said. "That's why I offered a professional solution." 2 hours later, we met at a fancy cafe in downtown Chicago. Patricia had also brought TechVantage's CTO Mark Stevens with her. I'd known Mark for 10 years. He was a good guy. "Michael," Mark said, "this is a very serious situation. Customers are starting to panic." Global Tech CEO personally called Brandon. "What did he say?" I asked curiously. "He said if there's a security breach, they'll cancel the contract, a $50 million deal." Patricia stepped in. "Legally, withholding information that's company property." "Patricia," I said politely, "Thompson Guard is my intellectual property. There's no company documentation, no patent application. It's completely my know-how." "So what do you want?" Mark asked in a defeated tone. "Simple," I said. "A 3-year exclusive contract with Thompson Security Solutions, $25,000 monthly. With guaranteed increases through annual review clauses. $25,000 is too much." Patricia said. "I did market research," I said, taking out my phone. "Industry standard for similar services is $30,000–40,000. I'm giving you a discount." Mark took out a calculator. $300,000 annually. That's 3 times your old salary. "But the company would have to hire 3 people to replace me," I said. "Plus training them would take 2 years. Plus the risk of failure is very high." Meanwhile, there was chaos at TechVantage. My old teammate Jennifer Gray called and explained the situation. Brandon called the entire IT department to a meeting. He told Alex Chen to reverse engineer Thompson Guard. Alex is in panic mode. The system is so complex, he doesn't know where to start. "What's the situation with customers?" I asked. InnovateSoft's security team came today. They're doing an audit. They said if there's a risk of system failure, they'll terminate the contract. In the afternoon, Brandon personally called. His voice had completely changed. No longer arrogant, but desperate. "Michael, please. The company will go bankrupt. 300 people will lose their jobs." "Brandon," I said, "when you decided to fire me, did you think about these 300 people?" "I made a mistake," he said. "Come back, I'll double your salary." "Thanks, but I don't want to be an employee anymore. I have my own business." At 7 p.m., an emergency board meeting was held. Charles Richards, Brandon's father and company founder, personally called me. "Michael, son, you've been family for 22 years. Don't leave like this." "Mr. Richards," I said respectfully, "your son removed me from the family. I'm just using my survival instinct." "I'll do whatever you want," the old man said. "My contract terms are on the table. Accept them, and I'll stabilize the system tomorrow morning." The next morning at 9 a.m., Patricia Williams called. "We've approved the contract."
"When can you start?"
"Now," I said. "But first I need to see the wire transfer. First 6 months in advance." 2 hours later my bank called. $150,000 had been deposited into my account. When I returned to TechVantage as a consultant, Brandon's office was empty. I learned from Jennifer. The board of directors had made him resign by mutual agreement. 6 months later, Thompson Security Solutions had become Chicago's most prestigious cybersecurity firm. We had 12 major corporate clients. I had built an 8-person team. I also hired Brandon, by the way, as a junior security analyst. His salary was 1/3 of his old position, but he was open to learning now. "Michael," he said one day, "how did you plan all this?" "Brandon," I said with a smile, "for 22 years I didn't just work. I observed, learned, built networks. You underestimated me, and I taught you the real world." When I told Sarah at home that evening, she said, "Proud of you, but you took a big risk." Life is about taking risks. I had said, but calculated risks. I didn't plan this moment for 22 years, but I was prepared. Now every morning as I drink my coffee in my own office, I look at the TechVantage building. Same building. But now I'm the boss. Funny how life works, isn't it? By the way, last week, Mark Stevens called. Michael Brandon's father, Charles Richards, is retiring. He's thinking of selling TechVantage. Are you interested? I smiled. Mark, prepare a business plan for the buyout. After 22 years, maybe it's time to become the real boss. The story ends here, or a new story begins.